Welcome, Lions. Today we are here to talk a little bit about the unification of the North and South Dakota Lions Eye Bank. We are very excited. This is an exciting time to refocus on the Dakota region and the area that we serve, the mission of serving and the mission of restoring the gifts of sight and health. Please join me today in welcoming Al Berdahl as he talks a little bit about the services that the eye bank offers. Welcome to the Dakota Lions Sight and Health.
What are we and what do we do? We are a 501c3 organization. We're a regional nonprofit eye and tissue donation organization. And our mission is to restore the gifts of sight and health. And we do that by partnering with hospitals and hospices, with funeral homes. We work with coroners, and we work with law enforcement and EMS. And so those are the people that we partner with, and we work to secure tissue through those groups. So what does it mean when you have donor on your driver's license? What does that mean? Well, legally, the law says that's considered to be a last wish. That's a dying wish. And technically, it is enforceable as such, which means that technically that's all the authority we need to proceed with the recovery. Having said that, we need the family on board. We need them to know what the donor's wishes were. So if there were three things you had to know, three most important things you needed to know about being a donor, number one would be talk to your family. Number two would be talk to your family. Number three would be talk to your family. And if there was a fourth one, it would be talk to your family. Exactly. Talk to your family. It changes that conversation that our coordinators have with the family after their loved one passes away. And they're going to get that phone call within an hour to an hour and a half of losing their loved one. And it puts the family now, if they know the wishes of the donor, it puts them in a position of supporting their loved one's wishes rather than having to make a decision in the absolute worst time of their life. And it just makes things so much easier. So please, talk to your family. What we have on the screen is a donor comparison of the last 3 fiscal years. And I'm going to talk about the 15 column, which ended June 30th. And we had that year, if you go back to 14, we had 456 donors. And in fiscal year 15, we had 556. And that increase is a direct result of working with North Dakota. As you can see, it was 425 and 13. But because of our work with North Dakota, we have an extra 100 donors. Now, those donors supplied 776 corneas for transplant. That's 766 people who received the gift of sight. Now, 316 of them were of those 766 were transplanted either in South Dakota, North Dakota, or Minnesota. We send that many. We have doctors in Sioux Falls, Rapid City, Fargo, Minnesota, in Wilmer, and that we send surgeons to, and we're always looking for more ophthalmologists to do transplants that would request corneas from us. So 316 of the 366 that were transplanted within the United States went to those 3 states. 50 were sent to other eye banks in the United States. Now, 307 were transplanted internationally. Why so many internationally? Well, bear with me for just a minute, because I have to explain a little bit of the anatomy of the eye. The best indication of the health of a cornea is what we call a cell count. And the cornea, which is on average 550 microns thick, does that help anybody? Probably not much. A micron is a millionth of a meter. Does that help? Probably not. There are 25,500 microns in an inch. So they're real small. and a cornea is 560 of them. The very inside layer of that cornea is a single layer of cells. And those cells are counted on a spectrum microscope that we have in our eye lab. And to be transplantable, a cornea must have at least 2,000 cells per square millimeter to be transplantable. Well, even though in our governing bodies tell us that you have to have 2,000, as I said, to be transplantable, there's not a doctor in the United States that's going to accept one at 2,100 cells. They want 26, 27, 28, 3,000 or more cells, and they can get them. They can get them. They're available, and if you were their patient, you would want them to get them. You would want as many cells as you could get. So we have a couple docs that will go down to 2,500 cells per square millimeter. But below that, we can't place those corneas in the United States. So we have corneas from 2,000 to 2,500 that we can't send out to a surgeon. So we work with an organization in Florida called International Sight Restoration. And they have contacts with doctors all over the world that love to get corneas from the United States because, one, they know they're safe, and two, they don't have access to the donor networks that we have. So they're not available. So rather than, we think it would be tremendously poor stewardship to say, well, we just can't transplant these. It's much too magnanimous of a gift. So we will send them to International Sight Restoration. They will then ship them overseas to other surgeons, and they can be transplanted and fulfill the donor's wishes. So that's why there are so many that go overseas. Now, the bottom number, corneas, gratis corneas, 93. Every once in a while, we get it's not unusual to get a call from a doctor's office, and they will tell us, I have a patient, has no insurance, has no money, but they need a transplant. Will you donate a cornea? The answer is always yes. The answer is always yes. And the surgeon, more often than not, in fact, I don't know of a case where they haven't donated the surgery to that individual, and they get their sight back. Well, this is a program that's directly funded by Lions. We have an endowment, and if we need to recapture the money that we would have gotten from that cornea, we can use our endowment. But that's a fund directly supported by the Lions. So 93 people who had no means received the gift of sight in 2015. I don't know how well you can see in the light, but if you can see those little, they look like little pebbles or cotton balls, those are the cells in my right eye. That picture was taken on August 15th of 2014, 2 months after my cornea transplant. That is a beautiful picture to me. Remember I said that you had to have 2,000 cells per square millimeter? This right here tells you how many there are, 2,639 cells per square millimeter in that picture. That's a beautiful picture. This shows the shape of the cells, and the perfectly shaped cell is a hexagonal, and that's those 6 sides, and the shape of the size of the shells, a nice bell curve. That's beautiful. You want to see what it looked like a month before my surgery? You see a difference? Now, during the day, I had pretty good acuity. I was 20/30. Not bad. I had glasses, but I could see pretty well during the day. But at night, when I'm driving down the highway and that pickup or SUV or car comes over the rise, the glare was so great that my vision went from 20/30 to 2400, like that. So it forced me to take my eyes off the road ahead and look at the fog line down the side of the road. Just when traffic is coming at me, I'm looking at the side of the road. I would say now that I probably wasn't safe, although I had a hard time admitting it then. But without that transplant, I'd be going blind, or I would be blind. Now, this isn't about me, and it isn't about my surgeon. It's about the donor that donated those cells. Because without a donor, this surgery does not happen. There is no such thing as an artificial cornea. And I received that gift twice in 2014. And there are not words in the English language to tell you how meaningful that is to me as one who has benefited directly from what Lions do, or to say thank you to the donor's family, which we try to do in a letter to send to the donor family. And words don't exist, but we still try. So who can become an eye and tissue donor? Everybody can be an eye and tissue donor. Now, not only is there transplant, there is always research. Right now, we are recovering corneas for transplant from age 2 to age 75. And if we need to, we can up that to age 80 for transplant. We don't recover below age 2 because the cornea is still forming and it's very hard to work with, not only for recovery technicians, but for surgeons. And beyond 80, there is always research. And research is what got us here today. Research is what makes these miracles possible. And it is a miracle. I don't know what your definition is, but it fits mine. So if you think being a donor is a good idea, be a donor. Don't worry about what may be transplantable. I've had people tell me this, well, nobody would want my eyes because I can't see for beans. It has nothing to do with refraction of the light on your retina. It has to do with the quality of those cells and the quality of the cornea. So if you think it's a good idea to be a donor, be a donor. It's our job to make sure it's safe to transplant or to get it to people who could do the research. So when you talk to your family, make sure that you tell them that you want to also be a research donor. That's important. So how many people can benefit from one donor? He asked as he put the slide on the screen. In 2012, we had a donor that was a full eye and tissue donor. How old was that donor? 19 years old. And they were a full eye and tissue donor. And a number of months later, their family wrote us a letter and asked, what happened to all that tissue that our loved one donated? And we don't know. We know what happens to the corneas, to the ocular tissue. And donor families always get a letter from us telling them that their corneas were transplanted, their loved ones' corneas were transplanted in South Dakota or Minnesota or North Dakota, wherever they were. But we don't know about the other tissue because we send that to other processors to be processed. So we wrote to those processors. And they wrote back and said, as of the writing of their letter, they had shipped 405 grafts from one donor. Now, you're all too polite to point out that I have 407 up there, but I added 2 because we did transplant the corneas. And so it's 407 grafts from one donor. What a legacy that is. How many people are living pain-free? How many people can walk? How many people have solved a chronic health problem because of this one donor, let alone 2 people receiving the gift of sight? It is an astounding legacy, and that number we are finding is not unusual. So when you think about being a donor, look beyond just corneas, or think of the legacy that leaves going forward. How do you become an eye and tissue donor? Well, when you apply for your driver's license, you can check the box. If you renewed your driver's license last week and forgot to check the box, you can go to www.dot.nd.gov, and it'll take you right to the site, and you can check the box. Because nobody looks at the license. We pull a DMV report because that's up to date. So check the box. But always talk to your family about your wishes. Always talk to your family. So how can you help? One, become a donor. Be a donor. And number two, support the unified partnership between the Dakota Eye Banks to enable the gifts of sight and health. Visit with your local hospitals to encourage them to continue to work with the Dakota Lions Sight and Health organization and support what you as local Lions are doing. Promote donor registration. Talk to friends. Encourage people to consider being a donor. And talk to your family and your friends about the miracle of donation and transplantation. But once again, Helen Keller probably said it best when she said, there's no better way to thank God for your sight than to give a helping hand to those in the dark. Thank you to you as Lions for what you do. As one who has benefited directly from what Lions are about, let me tell you to never, please, please, never underestimate the impact that you have on people's lives, because it is so important and it is huge. So, once again, thank you from me and for all of those who have received the gift of sight.
This partnership has been a 2-year work in progress and has been very strategic, economies of scale, and really sending a clear message to the people of both North and South Dakota of the importance of eye and tissue donation. Today we encourage you to register as an eye and tissue donor to support the mission of the unification of the North and South Dakota Lions Eye and Tissue Bank, and to help us move forward as we continue to grow and serve our communities. I look forward to working with you and sharing with you more about the new Dakota Lions Sight and Health as we continue to grow and visit clubs throughout the region. Thank you.